Yeah, I think we're rolling. Go ahead.
Perfect. So, Erin, welcome to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. So thanks for the invitation.
No, we're so honored to have you on. We had your counterpart, Christopher, on last a couple of weeks ago, talking about obviously the book that we're going to get into it a little bit later. But thank you so much for making time. I know that it was today, especially, was busy, and again, we'll get into that a little bit later as well. But overall, you've just been like running 100 miles an hour, huh?
Yes, I have. But that's okay. That's just like I said, the season of life I'm in. So
That's good.
So, for those that don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
yeah, of course. So hello, listeners. My name is Erin Monnin. I do a lot of things, so I'm going to try to keep this concise. But the most important roles in my life, I am a wife and a mother. Um, a newer mother. I have a almost 6-month-old daughter, which is crazy to say because in my mind I'm like she's growing up so fast. But yeah, so yes, Catholic wife and mother. Those are my three proud titles. But also I am a full-time development officer for the Society of St. Vincent de Paul in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm the co-author of Catholic Leadership for Civil Society, and I'm a speaker, writer, and social media influencer. So lots going on. Grateful for it all, and happy to talk more and dive into those things one at a time today.
That's amazing. It is your first. You have your 6 month old
hmm
girl. That's
Yes, my
oh,
first kid.
Congratulations.
Thank
congrats.
you.
Yeah.
That's
Thank you
Um,
very
beautiful.
much.
that is a
Yeah, so
lot that has happened in the last 6 months for you.
yeah,
It,
so
with
Erin is what we call in Spanish un estuche de monerias, which roughly translates to someone that just does a lot of things, like a Swiss Army knife, Renaissance
yeah,
woman, if you
basically.
will, right? So
That sounds a little bit more elevated.
Hey, I love it. I'll take it. That's a great that's a great compliment.
Yeah, especially monerias because it's like cutesy things. It's
yeah,
like, you know,
that's what it is.
but
I never
yeah,
knew that that was actually the word. I was today years old when I knew that, Walter.
come
It
on, I'm gonna take your
it's
Mexican card away.
dude, I'm telling you, that's one of those things that you hear all of your life and you never just put two and two together. Anyway.
Okay, small parentheses. You know, monerias comes from mono. It says que mono. Something is
Hmm.
mono. It is like it is cute, but mono is
Okay.
also what you would say for a monkey, and
Well,
like an
that's not
ape.
the one.
I
Yeah,
know it's
no,
not,
that's
but
the
it's
other one.
Spanish is weird like that.
I know. It's
I
pretty
Oh.
eh,
complex.
Yes,
so
it
I'm saying.
is.
So you are also here to learn a little bit of Spanish. Anyways, so let's talk a little bit. And I love that you said that your three main roles is Catholic,
Hmm.
mom, and wife, and I think that that is what everybody should focus on their vocation first. And I think that's one of the things
Hmm.
that uh, it is highlighted in the book, that everyone that is a baptized Catholic has a responsibility first with God, second with their vocation, third with the world. Um, talking about your vocation, you are um, a new mother, um, and you talk about things that sometimes on your Instagram page, at least, you talk about things that are usually not common for people to talk about, which is postpartum depression. Um, can you share a little bit about your experience with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I try to be as authentic as I can on social media because there's a lot of not authenticity in the
Hmm.
social media space. So so yeah, the like you said, the past 6 months have been a wild ride to say the least. Um So yeah, new mother, which comes with all sorts of feelings and experiences and a very steep learning curve. Not only when you're pregnant, but then of course when you have the baby. So yeah, you know, you can only read so much, and you really just have to experience going through pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. And I certainly, I read everything. I read all the books. I looked up, what could possibly happen after the baby's born, and all this stuff. But you don't know it until you're going through it. So yeah, my pregnancy was great. Our birth went really well. It was very long, but it went really well. And my husband and I, everyone always says, "Oh, we brought our baby home," and we're like, "Oh, now what?" But we didn't
Mm-hmm.
actually have that feeling. We were
Hmm.
kind of just like, "Yeah, this is our life now. Like, let's get to it." But in that, there's still a major healing process and adjustment process that needs to happen. And
Right.
for me, physically, my body actually healed really well, which I was very grateful for. But mentally and emotionally, it was so tough. So I had the baby blues for at least 2 weeks after the birth. I was crying 10 times a day for I didn't even know what reasons. And that just kind of slowly turned into postpartum depression. I've struggled with mental health mental illness all my life, and that's something that I also am pretty open about on social media because I
Hmm.
think it needs to be talked about a lot more. So anxiety and depression have been part of my history, but it takes on kind of a whole new, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but it takes on this whole new
Dimension.
dimension
Hmm.
when you're a new mother. So yeah, I struggled for, I still do, but I struggled for those first 3 months, especially while I was on maternity leave, because there's just so much going on, so much to deal with, and it's very difficult. It's very taxing on the mind and the body. And I was just very I just felt very lonely and didn't I just felt like kind of, oh, I'm the only one going through this, even though I have
Hmm.
several friends.
Right.
But postpartum depression takes on this whole new other part of your mind, I feel like, because now you're caring for this little human being that you've never had to before, at least, before they came into
Hmm.
existence in the womb. But motherhood is so many things, and then you're trying to take care of yourself on top of it. So to make a long story short, yeah, it's postpartum depression is very real, and it hits people in a lot of different ways. For me personally, it was just this constant feeling of like hopelessness and loneliness, and is my life ever going to be the same,
Hmm.
normal again? And I struggle with a lot of other things with that too. My biggest dream in life was to be a wife and a mother, and then
Right.
now I am a mother, and I, shouldn't I be the happiest I've ever
Hmm.
been? And instead I'm, the saddest I've ever been. And all I want to be is a stay-at-home mom, but like we just can't do that right now in our season of life. So
Hmm.
that those kind of things played into it too, and it and then on top of that, trying to take care of this new life and yourself. And yeah,
That's
so
a
Yeah.
tall
just a
order
lot
for
going
sure.
on.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
So let's just recap a little bit for people again that don't maybe follow you. And again, our audience is primarily male. So
Okay.
in the past 6 months, roughly, right? You had a baby, you had the baby blues, you were diagnosed with PPD, as you were just explaining. You went back to work full time and launched a young professionals group. Then relaunched your two small businesses, published a book. Anything else that we missed? Because this post was like at least 4 weeks old at this point.
Yeah. No, thankfully there's nothing else to add to that list currently. So trying to keep it that way.
Yeah.
Well, I have a follow up question. What helped you the most to get out to manage, I guess, the postpartum depression?
Yeah, so I'm a big advocate for counseling and therapy. So I've been going to a counselor for, oh my gosh, 8 years, 7 years, 7.5 years. So I continued with that, and then I'm a very naturally minded person. So I'm not super into medication or
Hmm.
really anything that can be prescribed to me. I tend to do a lot of natural health and wellness things, but I did I did take start taking medication, and I'm also an advocate now for that because sometimes you've tried everything else like me,
Hmm.
um you kind of hit this dead end and you're like, okay, nothing's working, let's try something else. So I actually
Yeah.
approached my counselor and asked to be on medication. So
Hmm.
the combination of counseling and medicine is what has helped me, as well as trying to meet new moms.
Hmm.
Because of that loneliness factor, uh, everyone needs community, but they especially need it in new phases of life. So I've tried to meet new mom friends, and some of my current friends who aren't moms are like, hey, I have a friend who's a mom, do you want me to connect you to? So really, like, seeking that community has been super helpful too. It helps with it just helps combat that loneliness and um, being in your head, and it makes you feel the sense of belonging, like you're not the only one. There are plenty of other parents in the world. You just have to meet them and hang out with them, and
Yeah.
it's a great time when you can just really get out of your own head and enter into the lives of others, and then with your children too. So those
Hmm.
are a few of the things that have helped me.
Well, I
Well,
guess when
praise
they
be to
say it
God
takes
for
a
that.
village, when they say it takes a village, it doesn't just mean for the kids themselves. It's about
Mhm.
everybody because
Mhm.
you have
Yeah.
to have that sense of community. If you think about um, intergenerational families, especially in Mexico, that they're very it, even to today, it's very common to have a grandmother or like an aunt or like somebody living other than the primary family unit with the family. So I think that also aids a lot in all of these different aspects of either motherhood or like you said, like being a new mom, being kind of like isolated, getting into your own head. So there's definitely something to be said about community, especially with women that are going through the same things that you are at that moment, that you can kind of like bounce ideas off each other and say, oh, this helped me, I tried this. So I think that's crucial and
Mhm.
very, very needed, particularly in Catholic circles, right? I mean, we are
Yeah.
definitely tied as Catholics by our faith, but it should go deeper and extend beyond that, I guess.
Mhm. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
We have a tradition of my wife and I always getting dinner for new parents. Well, not even necessarily new parents, but parents that are every time they have children, because those things saved us. Sometimes
Mm.
we don't want to recognize
Yeah.
that we need help
Yeah.
and try to white knuckle it ourselves. So kudos to
Hmm.
you for recognizing that you needed help and then
Totally.
going after it.
Mhm.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
My wife and I struggle with some of that. We have four, and yeah, sometimes it's
Mm.
like we have so many children, but that same feeling. I was like, this is what you wanted. This is was the desire of my heart to be a father.
Mm.
But that doesn't mean that it's going to be easy at all
Mhm.
times. So
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
uh, we need to. If it were easy, anybody could do it. But there's a
Yeah.
mission behind it. So let's talk a little bit about Saint Vincent de Paul and your work there. What does it mean to be? Did you say director of
Program
development,
coordinator.
Development officer.
Development
development
officer.
officer? What does
Mhm.
that entail?
Yeah, so it's a fancy term for fundraiser. So I basically, my job is to uh, work with our donors at St. Vincent de Paul. So, cultivating relationships, building those relationships, inviting donors into our work in whatever way that they want to, either continuing to financially or volunteering, hosting drives, you name it. We probably can help them do that. So, really just donor focused, and also community engagement. So, getting out in the community, meeting people, and inviting them into our work. St. Vincent de Paul does a lot more than what people think we do. We're not a soup kitchen. We do feed people, and then we also do like 25 other things. So,
Mhm.
I was giving a tour today actually after the book event, and this happens every time, but a couple people on the tour were like, I had no idea you did all of this. And it's true. Most people don't know everything we do. So, yeah, I'm a development officer. So basically, I'm working with a development team there. There's several development officers on our team, which is such a blessing. And we're all out in the community fundraising to run this amazing organization. So,
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
yeah,
Wait,
thank
so
you.
now I'm curious because I know that there's the food pantry and then the thrift shops, but what are other things that people might not know about St. Vincent de Paul?
Yeah, so most people do know about the food pantries and thrift stores. We have a medical and dental clinic on our campus. We have a transitional housing shelter for we have 60 beds for homeless adults, and a lot of them
Okay.
are veterans
Wow.
and people who
60.
have
Oh my
disabilities.
God.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a resource center where anyone who is in homeless or in need of anything really can walk through our doors and um, have a one-on-one conversation with one of our volunteers and staff, and we try to meet their needs. And we have like I think it's 16 partner agencies working in there with us. So, um, gosh, we have a bike shop. Basically, we fix up bikes so that we can give them to our guests. Uh, I don't know. We do
That is,
I'm trying to think
all
of
of
all
those
of it.
things are
That is
Yeah,
great.
fantastic.
yeah,
That
it's
is
pretty
awesome.
incredible.
Go support
Yes.
St. Vincent de Paul, people. I I know
Yes.
we do. We love thrift shopping there. We get there.
Oh.
Before we moved, we had the one on Bell Road. We lived really close by, and we're like
They'll probably go
we were
every Saturday
regulars.
and scavenge
We
hunt.
were regulars. I mean, we knew the people there, and they knew our kids,
He's
and
not
Oh, that's
lying.
yeah,
amazing.
they more than anything, book hunting. My wife is a really really bookworm. That's the best word,
Mm.
right, to describe her. And she has built us an amazing library. I want to say, like, in great part to St. Vincent de Paul, because there's just a treasure trove of
Mm.
like knickknacks, but in terms of like the books that we found there, it's like, oh my goodness, you guys really don't know what you have when you have books in there. So we're very grateful for that
Yeah.
contribution to at least to our family. but
Oh, wow.
but yeah,
That's
it's
amazing.
it's really amazing to hear everything that St. Vincent de Paul just offers the community. It's
Mhm.
it's awesome work that they do.
Yes,
Fun story.
absolutely.
My bachelor apartment was almost exclusively furnished with St. Vincent de Paul
Dude, I'm
furniture.
telling you.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
I'm telling you.
awesome. I love it.
Well, I
Yeah.
moved to Phoenix 10 years ago and I didn't have any piece of furniture. So,
Hmm.
St.
Hey.
Vincent de Paul,
Yeah.
baby.
Yep, that's
To
great. That's
the
what we're there
rescue.
for.
So on top of everything that we already mentioned, Erin, you're a speaker too, and one of the topics that really caught my attention from the ones that you have on your website listed is celebrating what makes you who you are. And
Mm.
especially right now in today's world and today's culture, can you talk a little bit about why you like to tackle this topic?
Yeah, I really enjoy that talk, and that was actually born out of my experiences at St. Vincent de Paul. I was originally asked by someone there to give that talk, and now that's one of the things I do. I've given it multiple times, but yeah, celebrating what makes you who you are. So that's something that I really started kind of diving more into probably in 2018. I had just moved back to Arizona from a job that I was working right out of college, and um, I yeah, just started working at St. Vincent de Paul, and I had my own apartment for the first time. And so I actually had a lot more time on my hands back then than I do now.
Hmm.
Imagine that. So I it was actually the only time in my life that I can honestly say that I was really like taking care of myself and like just very happy and at peace with like the simplicity of life. Not that it's bad to be any other way of life, but just it was just the first time in my life I'd experienced that. So I was really able to um dive into books that were about, daily affirmations, building yourself up, taking care of your mental health, learning ways to essentially celebrate who you are. So I kind of gathered all of the things that I was like learning about and reading and experiencing in this very like nice stage of my life, and then some of my past experiences as well. And then I just was like, you know what? I can totally talk about this. So when I was invited to speak about it for the first time, I was really excited. And basically, it's just something that I think needs to be discussed a lot more. The first talk I gave on this topic was to college students, which was so cool because at that time I was only a couple of years out of college. So it was nice to be able to essentially tell people what I wish someone would have told me.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of what that talk is. It's diving into, it's getting past the shallow, like, oh yeah, this is my name, this is what I do for work, and blah blah blah. It's like, no, this is who I am, this is what makes me me. This is where I find my identity in, and the talk is Catholic, so identity in Christ. And then just diving into what makes you unique, and then how can you celebrate that. And so I what's the word I'm looking for? I adapt the talk to the audience. So the first time I gave it to college students, and then there was another time I was giving it to adults who were like much older than me. So there was like a range of ways that I like to present on that. But everyone can hear that message and take from it what they need in that time of their life.
Hmm.
So I love discussing it because it's something that like very I took on really well. And when I was, just kind of finally taking a breath after um, I was doing mission work after college. So it was kind of crazy. And then I moved back here and I was just like, okay, like, let's breathe. Let's like get back on track. And so that's kind of where that talk came out of. And um, yeah, I can answer other questions, but that's kind of an overview. So,
That's awesome. So
That's
you were
awesome.
doing missionary with focus, right? Missionary work
hmm
with focus.
yes.
What was that about? What was that like?
That was great. I did that for 2 years. So I worked as a missionary at the Franciscan University in Steubenville.
Nice.
Oh,
And
nice.
then for my first year, and then my second year, I was at Cal State Fullerton. So two very different experiences, but yeah,
Oh yeah.
focus.
It sounds very, it
Yeah,
sounds like it.
one was a very small Catholic college, and the other was a very secular, large university in California. So, um, very different experiences, but both, there's such a need for missionaries at both. A lot of people would ask me, "Oh, they need missionaries at Franciscan?" I'm like, "Actually, yeah, they do."
Wow.
So, yeah, bringing them closer in relationship with Christ instead of bringing all the knowledge in their head. You need to bring it to their heart. So anyways, yeah, so it was a very busy couple of years, as you can imagine, working with college students about the faith.
Nice.
But very necessary work.
Yes, absolutely.
What you just mentioned about celebrating what makes you you, it make me think of the book that Gustavo and I were doing during reading during Lent, "Born of Fire" by Father Innocent Montgomery,
Innocent. Hmm.
because it just goes through all of the different identities of this, particularly written for men as a
Mm,
son, father,
Husband.
spouse, man, yeah, all of these. But yeah, that's, I think that is such an important thing to recognize, as sons and daughters of God,
Mhm.
and celebrating. I think that the celebration part is something that I struggle with, because I'm like,
Mm.
I don't know, I don't, what do I have to celebrate? It's just like I'm a normal guy that does a podcast and doesn't, at the same time, I don't want to be famous. uh I don't know, it's a weird combination, but like, can we call you an influencer? Is that something that that you do? Is it, sorry, we are too old to,
Yeah, I don't get it.
it's just like, I don't get the, then this is a very
Well,
honest question, like, can you explain to us what influencer
yeah. Well, it's a
entails?
term that I use. I should probably use it more lightly, but because sometimes it has a bad connotation. But basically, like 3 years ago, I decided I was either going to delete my social media or I was going to revamp it. And I was obviously decided to stick with it, but with a whole new mission and purpose. So I had been like following a bunch of people in the Catholic world mostly,
Hmm.
who were just sharing messages that were unique and different and sharing different like Catholic products and programs and classes and all this stuff, and I was like, that's interesting. So I like looked more into, what that's all about, and I was like, that's like what I want to do. I want to speak truth into the world and share all the things that I love with other people that they may not know about. So that's
Mm,
like a very simplified definition of
Yeah,
an influencer. Like I said, it has a bad connotation because there are influencers who like sell clothes and sell jewelry and
yeah.
do all these other crazy things and have like 4 million followers. Like obviously that's not
right.
what I do, but um you know I say that because my one of my main missions and purposes of my social media now is to share my experiences so that I can impact and influence people. That's like
Hmm.
literally what I'm mostly doing on social media now. So it's fun. It's given me a lot of it's kind of my creative outlet, and
Hmm.
it's allowed me to meet so many amazing people that I never would have met without it. So I think there's a bad especially in like the faith communities, I think social media gets a bad rap for a very good
Hmm.
reason because there are parts of social media that are just really toxic and we don't
Yeah.
need to be a part of that. But
Correct.
we need, unfortunately, most of the world is online and we need Catholics there. So I think that was kind of the main thing that I was thinking about when I was like, okay, do I delete or do I really like go full force into this?
Exactly.
Because if we all back out, it's just
A
gonna get worse.
cesspool of, yeah, things that are not
So
necessarily great.
Yeah.
yeah, so that's kind of in a nutshell what I'm trying to do is influence people positively and um, just
For
keep
the
meeting and
building of the
connecting. And
kingdom.
yeah,
Hmm.
exactly.
That's awesome. That's great.
Okay,
Thank you.
I
That
like that.
helps.
I want to
That
be an
helps a lot.
influencer in that way.
I
Yeah,
hope
Then,
it
because
does.
my kids are like, Dad, this like TikTok, and my kids don't have phones, and I vowed never to buy them a phone. I said, you're gonna get a phone when you can pay for it yourself. That way it'll
Mm,
be your
good
fault.
job.
Um, but obviously
then again,
they're
that's
in
tricky,
touch.
because if they get a phone and then they download TikTok on their phone,
No, that won't happen in this house. That will
uh,
happen when they are not under this roof, which
well,
that'll be around 30, age 30 for each one of them. So so
I love
so I
it.
I have two girls. So but I mean obviously they're in touch with the world, right? And technology and everything. So they tell me, it's like, Dad, look at this TikTok. I'm like, I just don't get it. I'm like really old. I don't
we're
get
showing
it,
our
you know?
age.
Oh,
Totally,
that's
big
too
time.
funny.
And I think you hit the nail on the head, because it's um and again, I feel like I bring him up every episode, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Bishop Barron did the same thing. He said we gotta be out there, we gotta engage people where they are meeting. Right now, they're meeting online. That's just the
Mhm.
reality of it. So using the talents that God gave you for the good, and making sure that they're oriented towards truth, goodness, and beauty. I
Hmm.
think that's a great use of resources and time and talent and treasure, right? If it's
Hmm.
being done towards that end. So kudos to you for spearheading that in your own corner of the world, right?
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So
So,
basically, go ahead, Walter. I'm sorry.
no worries. Can you tell us about? We know that this morning, I mean, at the time of recording, you had an event for the blessing of the book, Catholic Leadership for Civil Society, and Bishop Olmsted um, did a blessing of the book. How was that
Hmm.
like? Tell us
Oh my
everything.
gosh, it was amazing. Christopher and I, we had hopes and dreams for how this event was going to go, and I think everything that happened exceeded those.
That's
It
amazing.
was such yes, it is. It was really such a blessing because um it was actually a very intimate setting. We were in a small conference room at St. Vincent de Paul. We had about 40 people show up, and there were some very important people in that small room, and it was so amazing to see CEOs interacting with like college students, and like my daughter was there, and like people who have never met her or me were like coming up and saying hi to her, and seeing all of my worlds collide was really cool, like TLI and St. Vincent de Paul and my family. It was just like it was so incredible. Like I wish I could have just been a fly on the wall, to be honest, because the connections and the conversations that were happening and that were being made were honestly just incredible. So that's one part of it. And then of course, yeah, the program itself went wonderfully. Shannon Clancy, who's our associate CEO at St. Vincent de Paul, she did a beautiful greeting and opening to all of our guests. And then I got to get up and share the how of the book. So, how did we write this book? How did it all go down? And then Christopher talked about the why, and then the bishop closed with some really inspiring words and then blessed the book. So, and then we were able to sign books after that, which is so wild to say out loud. I'm like, oh my gosh. It was a very surreal experience. Christopher and I were learning a lot. We were like signing, and then people were like, "Can I get a picture?" And then like this person was like, "Hey, can I ask a question?" It was just like pure chaos, but it was chaos in the best way. So
Beautiful chaos.
yes, exactly. So
Hmm.
it went amazingly, and we're so grateful for everyone who was there. So yeah, thank you for asking.
So let's backtrack a little bit. So obviously you co-wrote the book with Christopher. Christopher is the founder and pretty much the facilitator that started Tepeyac Leadership Initiative, which you
Hmm.
and I are alumni of. So how did you get into the program? How did you first hear about it?
Through St. Vincent de Paul, actually.
Okay.
I was approached by someone. We work with a consulting, or we consult with a business that helps us do a lot of like our direct mail pieces and just fundraising strategy in general. And he actually was one of the people who helped hire me on. So he had mentioned, oh yeah, there's like this new program in the diocese. It's called Tepeyac Leadership Initiative. Like you should look into it and see if it's something you'd be interested in doing, because we would be happy to support you through
Hmm.
that. And I was like, okay, I'd never heard of it. I didn't know what it was, why I was being invited to be a part of it, whatever. So I looked it up, and very quickly from the website, I was like, wow, like this definitely sounds right up my alley. Just the values of the organization, the mission, 5 months of learning how to be a Catholic leader in secular society, and it was just, I was like, sure, sign me up. So yeah,
Little did you
found out
know.
about it through that. Yeah. Yeah, so very grateful, because obviously God has done some incredible things since then. So
Sweet. So Catholic Leadership for Civil Society, and is that more or less in TLI where you became familiar with the concept, and where you became passionate about to jump in with the book?
Yes, definitely. I already believed a lot of the things that were taught in that class, and the
Hmm.
mission, excuse me, um the program, but through the classes, and then obviously believed in the mission. Honestly, I think I started understanding it more like after I graduated. What my leadership commitment was actually something that has to do with the church, with my parish, and since then, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, like, that's great, but the point is to, like, go out in society." So, yeah, I was all bought in, but I think I just I was learning even after the program ended, which was fantastic. So I graduated in 2019, so I only had a few months between that and then when COVID happened. So, um I think when COVID hit in the beginning of 2020, that's when I started helping out. I actually managed their blog and their Instagram account for
Hmm.
like 6 months at a time. Um, and then had to step away because I was doing other things. But um, through that experience, Christopher realized that I, first of all, loved to write. And then, second of all, he thought at least that I was probably pretty good at it. So he was
Hmm.
like, oh, so that's kind of how we paired up to write the book. But essentially, the message of the book, yes, I learned a lot more about it and got way more bought into it through going through Tepeyac Leadership Initiative. So.
Yeah.
So in chapter 7 of the book, talks about one of the three fundamentals for civic leadership, which is human dignity.
Mhm.
Can you give us a little insight on why is this important for civic leadership?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, it's not something people would immediately think of when they think of leadership or fundamentals for
Yes.
leadership. Like human dignity, how does that play in? Because a lot of people think human dignity and they think, well, depending on where you fall on the spectrum, most people are like, oh,
Right.
that's like the pro-life movement, whatever. But
Hmm.
no, it's so much more than that. It is that and so much more. So human dignity as a fundamental for civic leadership is basically approaching every person and having every encounter be a Christ-like one. So
Hmm.
you could be in any job, doesn't matter. You could be a janitor all the way to a CEO, but having that human dignity and respecting the human dignity of every other person in your that you encounter in your role is key to being a leader. You can be a leader even if it's not in your job title, if that's not your job title, like I said. So
Yeah.
um, that's really what the heart of that means. And it, of course, there are these other moral ethical things that have to do with human dignity that we should stand up for in civil
Hmm.
society and in our roles in our workplaces. But in addition to that, it's also encountering everyone with a Christ-like and charitable attitude, and respecting their human dignity no matter what the situation is, whether you're in a conflict or a confrontation or it's a pleasant experience with that person. It doesn't matter, that human dignity needs to be there. So that chapter really explains and walks us through, how to change and shift our mindset so that we can be recognizing that human dignity in others. So, how can I uphold someone's dignity in every encounter I have today? It walks us through some questions to get us thinking about that and kind of reorient ourselves to um, just having human dignity at the forefront of our mind in everything that we do, and not something that we only save for our going to church on Sunday or our
Right.
volunteer
Hmm.
pro-life group or whatever. It's so much more than that. So
Or upholding human dignity in people that we like, but not the ones
Exactly.
that
yes.
we don't
Hmm.
like.
Yeah,
Just for me, it would
exactly.
be like the struggle, honestly.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
And I think it's so important that you guys laid out the book like this, because I mean I encourage everybody to go and get a copy of the book first and foremost, because it's like, and Christopher said it in the other episode. He says this is not a novel idea, but we're just unpacking it from a leadership perspective, from that Catholic perspective also. But
Mm.
it's the fact that dignity is what we're missing the most right now, because we we've fallen away from God as a society.
Mm-hmm.
So who gives you your dignity then, right? If you
Yeah.
don't believe in God,
Yeah.
if you are the center of your own little universe, where does that dignity come from? And
Mm-hmm.
that's something that I think it's
Mother
so
Nature, Gustavo.
the climate. That is something that I think it's so crucial for people to recognize.
Yeah.
And again, arcing back to the book that Walter mentioned about Born on Fire, that's they hammer it down so much that it actually I was like, I get it, Father, I get it. I am a child of
Mm-hmm.
God. But sometimes that's how you
That's what
need
it
to hear it
takes.
over and
Mm-hmm.
over. You are a child of God. That's your worth. That is your dignity. So I
Mm-hmm.
think the book in itself, Catholic, your guys' book, Catholic Leadership for Civil Society, obviously talks about this and a lot of other different topics. Um, but it's great in and of itself because it's talking about true leadership in a world that really needs it right now, not
Mm-hmm.
the way the world offers it, right?
Mm.
Any for
Yes.
anyone isn't this is not just for professionals or for people that are gonna go or have gone through the program. Anybody can benefit from this book.
Mm-hmm.
What are you guys hoping people get out of this book?
Um, Inspiration, a call. We have plenty of calls to action, but we want people to be motivated to take action in their own
Hmm.
lives, whatever that looks. We lay out a lot of ideas, that we hope people will act upon. So really, action and inspiration and a desire to grow in their relationship with God through all of it too. That's something we're trying to share as well. When people think of a leadership book, they don't really necessarily think of it being some sort of prayerful experience, but our book kind of marries the two together. We have certain prayers in there that we wrote ourselves. We have other things that we reference about, um, taking things to prayer and really nurturing your relationship with Jesus, in all of these different ways. So we want it to be that as well. So like a call to action, inspiration, and acting upon the things that we're inviting people to, as well as nurturing their relationship with our
Hmm.
Lord.
That's
Another thing that
fantastic.
you another thing that you mentioned, I think you were at the Catholic Conversation. It's about the knowledge that was provided to you through TLI, through all these
Mm-hmm.
documents and church documents, essentially that we don't take advantage of as Catholics.
Mm-hmm.
That when we try to learn something, we Google it, but then we get the whatever results you called it, right? Whatever results Google
Yes.
gives you. And I think that's also very, very important that we don't Google works, but the Vatican and its infinite knowledge has all of those answers kind of like already laid out. And I think that's one of the things that most stuck with me from TLI, the fact that I was opened up. My mind was opened up to all that wealth of knowledge of the Catholic faith
Mm,
and all of these different aspects, right? Catholic social
mm-hmm.
teaching,
Yeah.
human dignity, sexuality, all of them. Education was a big one for me, for people that were, it's like, you got to get involved in the education if you wanted to change. Because boy, oh boy, when they
Yes.
gave me that talk, I was like, thank God we are able to homeschool our kids.
Mm-hmm.
What a blessing. What a blessing. And it has truly been. So yeah, I mean, opening up the church documents to really learn about how to go about all these different issues that are happening in society today.
Yes, absolutely. That's
Yeah.
Yeah,
key.
again, it's not a noble idea, but we're just bringing light to it.
Yeah.
Um,
Pretty much.
well, Erin, it has been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for taking the time
Oh,
to
of
come on the
course.
podcast. It's been a really interesting conversation. But before we wrap things up, where can people find you? Your blog, your Instagram account, and the book. Give us all the deets.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. I'll try not to overwhelm everyone. First of all, thank you for having me. This has been a pleasure, and I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. So can't wait for it to be released and share it
Mm-hmm.
with everyone. So people can find me on Instagram. It's at flowering.at.his.feet. My website is floweringathisfeet.com. And if you want to purchase the book or learn more about the book, you can go to catholicleadership.net. So those are a few places you can find me and easily get connected there. So
And if you
Perfect.
search for Catholic leadership on Amazon, it's the first book that comes up.
yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Christopher likes to make sure we share that. So thank you for bringing it up. Yes, we're
He
grateful
trained us
because
well.
yes, he did. He's like, make sure you say this.
Yeah.
But we're so grateful for that because truly there is not a book like this out there. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a blessing to be able to say, hey, you don't even have to type in the whole title of our book. It'll just pop up because there's
Mm-hmm.
no other title like that right now. So
That's
it's
good.
great.
It's
Paving the
amazing.
way. Paving the way.
Yep.
Well, God bless you, Erin. Thank you so much for your time, and obviously, we'll keep us updated on everything that you're doing, and hopefully, we can get the families together here soon.
Hey, that'd be great. Thank you both so much for your time. I appreciate this, and God bless you both for all that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.